Good evening. This is the April 1st, 2020 Cottage Grove City Council meeting, which I'm calling to order during this interesting time. And of course, we're doing our social distancing. So just for the public, what they'll see in a minute, there's just two of us in the council chambers. The other three council members, Councilmember Mills, Thiede, and Olson are at their homes that are dialing in, and Councilmember Dennis and I are here. So first, or second, I guess, other than calling to order, is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All these things we learned through, I could hear you, Lorraine. All right, next is roll call. Neil, do you want to do the roll?
Okay, Joe is doing roll.
Oh, is Joe, I'm sorry, Joe was on there. My apologies, Joe. Joe Fishbach, you want to do the roll?
Councilmember Mills?
Here.
Councilmember Dennis?
Here.
Councilmember Thiede?
Here.
Councilmember Olson?
I'm here.
Mayor Bailey?
Here. Next item on our agenda is open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that wants to bring something up that is not on tonight's agenda or have any questions. They're welcome to do so at this time. Being that we're in kind of a remote situation where we're doing it here and the council chambers are technically closed, we did have the ability for people to put questions through the online process, and I'm just looking to Neil to see.
We have no questions at this point.
Okay, so not seeing anybody that has anything on open forum, I will go ahead and close open forum, and we'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis,
Second.
second by Councilmember Thiede. All right, and we'll need to do a roll again, just as normal. So I'll start with you, Joe.
Councilmember Mills?
Approve.
Councilmember Dennis?
Approved.
Councilmember Thiede?
Approve.
Councilmember Olson?
Approved.
Mayor Bailey?
Approved. All right, next is 6 is presentations. As we've been mentioning during this situation, we do have one presentation again this evening, and that is the COVID-19 situational update. And our emergency coordinator, director, however we want to call her, I've been giving her all kinds of names lately, but nothing bad, Captain Gwen Martin. So welcome again.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. So as of today, Minnesota is reporting 689 positive cases and 17 deaths. All of those deaths are in the age group of 70 and above. Right now in Washington County, we have 44 reported cases. There are, however, more cases in Minnesota that we just don't know about. Testing remains an issue. Minnesota has not yet peaked yet, and Governor Walz indicated that sometime next week he should be able to evaluate if the stay-at-home order will extend beyond the April 10th date at this time. Minnesotans need to stay at home as much as possible and avoid gatherings with anyone outside of your household group. It's difficult, but it is essential to slow the spread of the virus. Small businesses facing challenges, you can reference a guide on the DEED website that'll walk you through everything. DEED is an acronym, D-E-E-D. We have, as a police department, received complaints about people violating the stay-at-home order, and we need to continue to get the word out that social distancing works. It was never the governor's intent to have police officers breaking up basketball games or telling people to walk further apart. And he said today that he's not interested in arresting people who violate the order. However, people need to be smart about their outdoor activities, need to engage in activities and exercises that can accommodate the social distancing and not involve groups of more than 10 people. What we also heard today were comments about what we call source control, because pre-symptomatic transmission, which is defined as transmission of the virus from an infected person or a source to another person before that source person develops symptoms. In other words, people who haven't shown any symptoms could be walking around and spreading the disease without knowing it. Therefore, we're beginning to see another community mitigation method called source control. And this involves people who are out in public wearing face masks, not the N95 masks that are the filtering capacity that are needed by first responders, but simple cloth face masks. And Governor Walz encouraged folks today to wear these masks when visiting elderly populations. A lot of people have offered to put their sewing skills to good use and make reusable cloth masks. These homemade cloth masks can help prevent the spread of potentially infected respiratory droplets. So our message is this: we need your help to stop the spread of this coronavirus. If you feel sick, please stay home. If you are an older person, stay home and away from other people. Practice good hygiene. Wash your hands often and avoid touching your face. Cough or sneeze into a tissue or the inside of your elbow. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces and objects. Practice social distancing. Staying 6 feet away from others who do not live in your household, and avoid social gathering in groups of more than 10 people. Work from home whenever possible, and stay informed. Monitor trusted sources of information like the CDC websites and the Minnesota Department of Health websites. These are stressful times for everyone. Please take care of yourselves and your families.
Okay. Any council, any questions? We'll start with Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. Captain Martin, thank you. You always do such a great job on these updates for us, so we appreciate all of that work. I have a question for you, because one of the things that I've been seeing now reported as we go through this process is seeing numbers of people in recovery. Do you have access to any of that? And are we starting to see out of that 600 and some people as they work through the stage of that? Are we getting some reporting back on the number of people in recovery phase?
We are, and anyone can access that data through the Minnesota Department of Health Situational Update website. If you go onto their website and you go to the COVID-19 page and you click on the situational update, they include in their numbers, every day they seem to get more numbers and more graphs, and they do report the number of, right now it's several hundred people. I don't have the exact number right off the top of my head, but there are several hundred people who have recovered from the virus and are no longer in need of being quarantined or staying home from work. And you can get updates, text updates and email updates. So whenever Minnesota updates that situational COVID-19 awareness page, you can get a text message or an email that says, the numbers have changed, here's the information for you. So yes, anyone can stay on top of those numbers.
Okay, thank you for that. And I was watching Channel 4 News here before coming in to the meeting tonight, and it appears that, we're sitting in an advantageous position over our neighbor to the east, Wisconsin. And my hope is that, the measures that are taking place here are making that difference for people. And, like you say, encouraging folks, if you have to go out, run some errands or take care of some essential things, having people keep in mind respectfully that if you do go to a store, maybe one family member goes, you don't necessarily bring the whole group. And it's, it's not a social outing, but an opportunity to get out and take care of business. So I think that's a good bit of advice, and I appreciate, again, all the hard work you guys are doing for us. So thank you.
I'm just looking to the screen. Any questions, Lorraine? Okay, Dave? Justin, I can't see you, but just want to see if you had any questions. Okay.
No questions.
Sounds good. And just for the public, just to be aware, part of the process here is Gwen has been and our whole staff, frankly, have been amazing to work with through this issue. And every Friday, we are on a teleconference getting our situational update as relates to things going on, both from a state standpoint, but also from city and staff and such. So we're kept abreast of all the changes and things happening, whether it's hourly, daily, or at least for sure every Friday. So I just wanted the public to be aware of that. So again, thank you, Gwen, for coming in this evening.
Welcome, thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda this evening is consent calendar. Is there anybody who would like to pull anything on consent?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Mills?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull K, Oakwood Park.
Okay. And I think, Councilmember Thiede, you were going to pull K, so it's good if we're going to have a conversation. Perfect. Is there anything else on consent that anybody else wants to pull? All right. So I'll start, I guess, with you, Councilmember Mills. And K is, of course, the Oakwood Park Master Plan. So do you want to discuss?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. I just kind of wanted to get a little more of clarification on a couple things with this item. I see that it says master plan. A lot of the details are still reflective of the 2005 plan. And I guess I wanted to know a little more of really what this was the intention of what this is looking like for what was posted was like for 2021. So I don't know if Zach, if you could maybe just clarify a little more on that piece. That was part of what I wanted clarification on. And then I had a couple other things.
So Zach, do you want to start? And then I know after answering Councilmember Mills' questions, I know Councilmember Thiede had a couple too, maybe.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, thank you. So the 2005 master plan was a much bigger project. That's over $1 million project, and it included having to close down the disc golf course, expand the parking lot, and just kind of change the overall makeup of the park. With the funding that we find that's available, I think we've identified the items that we think are the most critical and that we prioritize to install. So those items being the playground, the shelter, the landscaping, parking lot, redoing the parking lot, not so much expanding it, adding some trails, scenic overlook, ball field, upgrading the ball field, and then creating that accessibility and those interpretive opportunities. So that allows us to keep the disc golf course as is, as opposed to closing it down or relocating it. Keeps as much of the natural landscaping in place as possible. There's actually very little being done to disturb the natural landscape that we have there. Same thing with keeping those natural trails. So this modified plan allows us to go ahead and apply for that grant and then move up the redevelopment of that park. That park is in need of some new energy there, some reinvigoration. It's been without a playground since 2003. The shelters was built in 1973, so that needs to be replaced soon. Needs some some restroom facilities, and it needs some tender loving care. And we thought now was a good time to apply for the grant. The outdoor recreation grant just recently went up from $100,000 to $250,000. So we're hoping to be able to achieve that. But in order to apply for that, we have to have a master plan that details exactly what we're going to do. So that's why we decided to update the master plan first, ran that through the Parks Commission, but then trying to make sure that we keep the 2005 master plan still on file. So those improvements that are on the 2005 master plan aren't going away. Some of those are just longer term, while some of those items are also included in the 2020 master plan.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. Another question on that is with the grant, was that something that's something you're looking to apply for coming up, correct?
Correct. Council actually approved application for that grant. So the grant was due on March 31st. So I did apply for the grant using this master plan.
Okay. The old one or the new one?
The new one.
The new one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mayor, some of my concern with some of this, and I guess is all of in light of everything that's going on right now and the funding and all of that, I'm a little concerned about moving forward too quickly on this. I guess I'd like to see maybe a pause and to step back a little bit on some of it. Also in thinking with the community center, and not that this park doesn't need some upgrades, I think it does. And I'm just wondering if right now might be a good time to maybe put a little pause to kind of look at all this together. I feel a little concerned about where things are going, and to quickly shift that money over to parks, that's where my concern is. And so I guess I'd like to open that up for some discussion.
Okay. Well, I'll comment just kind of what you were saying, just so we're all on the same page, and then I'll see if Councilmember Thiede had something he wanted to add. Personally speaking, I guess I don't have an issue with us. Obviously, he's applying for the grant, and if we don't get the grant, well, I guess there's two ways to look at it. We get the grant, and then we decide if we're going to spend money in the park, or we don't get the grant and we don't spend money in the park. But either way, at some point, we will have the option to say we're holding off. It'll just be up to us if we decide, depending on what happens with the grant. And that's really what I think this is all about, is the master plan was updated because there was this opportunity to go for a grant for, the 250,000. But I do think what we can do, though, and I was talking a little bit before the meeting with our administrator, is we could definitely do a workshop. Because I know there's a couple different pieces to this also, as it relates to also the land sale out in front, which obviously, where the proposed pizza ranch is going and such like that. So there's a lot of different pieces or moving parts, but at least from the point of, approving the master plan as it sits today, we're certainly not approving that we're actually going to build the park or upgrade the park as of yet. That will be a decision that will be down the road, and frankly, I agree with you, we just don't know at this point what's going to happen, but I also don't think we should just stop everything and wait. I think we can still see if we get the grant, and then we'll make the call if that's something that we want to do. At least that's my comment. Councilmember Thiede, did you have something else that you wanted to bring up on this topic?
Yeah, I was just, I've been kind of always interested in the amphitheater and so forth, and thought that area in the park was a good spot for it. And I remember, being on the planning commission and everything when this first came about, and the whole master plan. And some of my questions to Zach were whether the amphitheater was still an option. And I know we put the little calling it amphitheater at City Hall, but in a sense, or performance area or something like that. But so he mentioned, and I thought maybe we should be taking the 2005 plan and amending it with these other master plans. But he pointed out that for the grant and so forth, that it needed to focus on those things that we were proposing to use the grant specifically for. So I guess pretty much most all my questions have been answered, but I guess it was just primarily some of the emphasis on the fact that there's some of the features in that 2005 plan that could still be done, and they're not necessarily totally off the playing field per se. But so, and with regard to looking at, I agree that if we get the grant, then very probably we'll go ahead and do some of these things, and if we don't, then we probably will wait, I'd imagine. I think some of the same applies for Hamlet Park, right? Zach, did we do a grant request for Hamlet too, or no?
Councilman Thiede, yes, we did. We did a $250,000 grant for Hamlet Park as well. And I should mention that those applications were due March 31st. They don't actually award them until July 1st, which really means that construction can't begin until 2021, maybe even 2022 on any of these projects. So there's plenty of time. And as the mayor had mentioned, just because we apply doesn't mean we have to accept if they do offer the grant.
Okay, thanks.
It was at okay. Council or Administrator Levitt was going to bring it up, so that's good that you covered that already. Any other comments? Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I tend to agree with Councilmember Mills that there's a lot of things happening right now that I don't think we fully understand. We need to take a little bit of time to get through. So from my perspective, not fully closing the door on anything, but just wanting to be prudent and take a moment of pause to step back and see how the future unfolds. The other question that I had, or concern that I had with it, which was something that I had addressed with one of our directors, was, right now the money from the sale of the land that we had to Pizza Ranch, that money ended up going into the EDA trust fund, and I believe that's where it is right now. And so, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you take money and put it into one of these truly dedicated funds, like a parks fund, then that money could only be used for that purpose. Is that correct?
I guess I'll have to turn to either our administrator or Zach. I know different accounts have different strings attached, if you will, so do you want to take that?
Mayor and members of the council, yes, as I had indicated in my email to you, all of the transactions related to the actual acquisition, so all the expenses related to closing and being the owners of the property, those expenses were tracked in the EDA fund, which is the appropriate fund for land transactions. The journal entry to move that fund to the park trust has not occurred yet, just in our typical operations. So it is currently just sitting there, and it is just a journal entry to the park trust. So that can take place at any point.
Okay, so I know there was a question about, was direction available for this? So at least for my 20% of the vote, I would advocate that money stay in the EDA fund. I believe that we have more flexibility with that. The EDA did an awful lot of work relative to this. All of this stuff passed through that body, which is separate from the council. And it was approved unanimously when we went through and did everything. So I would like to see us maintain the flexibility of that, especially going into some times that might be uncertain. We might need some money to do some things to help stabilize, our local economy here in some ways. We haven't even thought of what those ways might be yet, but I'd like to see us at least have that flexibility. The term in business that comes to mind for me is staying liquid. And so instead of, locking up money into, let's say a product inventory, I'd rather keep that money right now in the bank account so that we have that should we need it. So that would be my position on it, that I would advocate for. And I know you're saying that we would have a workshop here coming up at a future time. So I'm fine with that. But I just want to make sure my concern was noted, that we remain liquid in this position right now with that money.
Yeah, and I think just so the public that may be watching and the rest of the council, on this item for K, just so we're all clear, there isn't money being transferred or anything at this point. This is just approving the updated master plan to go for the $250,000. And then we can come back later and discuss at some point, should we get the grant, obviously discuss the movement of money. We can get more into that discussion more later at that point. Any other comments on this item or anything else on consent?
I do have.
Mayor, this is,
Oh,
go ahead, Dave.
Councilmember Thiede first.
Yeah, just real quick on, sometimes a little harder to hear. It sounded like Steve alluded to the fact that the money is more flexible in EDA. Did Jennifer say that if it's moved to Park Trust, that it can't be moved back out?
No? Do you want to speak, though? Administrator?
Mayor and members of the council, you could choose to allocate those funds differently, and you'd have that flexibility. There's nothing that says you can't take those funds out of it based upon the land sale. Typically, when we say you can't move funds out, that is when developers actually provide us funds through park dedication. Those funds you cannot take out. This is due to a land sale, and that situation would be slightly different.
So it would have the same flexibility whether it's in the EDA or the Park Trust. Correct?
Mayor, members of the council, we don't make a habit of moving any money out of the park trust. Typically is not our past practice, but it is in the council's purview if there's something unique that you would feel necessary that's not related to development.
Councilmember Thiede and then Councilmember Olson, I'll get to you in a second. The reason this discussion is coming up is way back, and it's been a long time, when the Coles project went in and the roads and such went in there. There was a two outlots that were carved out of the park. One was what used to be Ruby Tuesdays, which is now Muddy Cow, and then the second one is obviously the Pizza Ranch parcel, the one that they purchased. At that time, there was some discussions, I do recall, I think it was on Planning Commission at that point, but not the council, or definitely not mayor, that the money that was the proceeds from those two land parcels were to be dedicated to Oakwood Park improvements. Whether that's, what do you want to, amateurized, or if that's material, or if it was just a guide, that's what I know our administrator was trying to track down, because it has been so long to see that. But that was something that council at that time had discussed as a reason because there was a lot of upset people at that time about the fact that part of the park was being taken for development. But that is a long time ago. Things have changed over the years. But the fact of the matter is, we can discuss that obviously at a later time. Councilmember Olson, did you have something you want to add?
No, Dave clarified. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve consent.
Move consent.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilmember Thiede. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Olson. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, Joe, you get to do the roll again.
Councilmember Mills,
Approved?
Councilmember Dennis,
Approved.
Councilmember Olson,
Approved.
Councilmember Thiede,
Approved.
Mayor Bailey.
Approved. All right, so the consent calendar, all the items on this evening's consent calendar have been approved. Now we'll move to number 8 on this abridged version of this meeting. 8 is approved disbursements. A is to pay the bills. I'll need a motion.
Move the bills.
I have a motion by Councilmember Olson. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilmember Mills. Any further discussion? All right, again, we'll go to roll call. Joe?
Councilmember Mills,
Approved?
Councilmember Dennis,
Approved.
Councilmember Thiede,
Approved.
Councilmember Olson,
Approved.
Mayor Bailey.
Approved. All right, next is 9 is public hearings. There are none tonight. Bid awards, also there are none tonight. 11, regular agenda. There is nothing on a regular agenda this evening. 12 is council comments or request. I'll do my normal run through. We'll start with Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to just extend what I've been seeing a lot of people really doing a great job of the social distancing and getting out. I know there's some that are not, but I know there are a lot really making a big effort. It seems like every day it gets a little closer to home. You get to know more and more people that are being impacted by it, by their family, by family members. And so I wish all the best to everybody. Please stay home, stay healthy. That's it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. We'll go next to Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to remind everyone that today is Census Day.
There you go.
Census 2020. I actually did this myself before coming in tonight. It took me 4 whole minutes to do. Went online to the website, my2020census.gov. Everyone should have received a letter like this in their mail that came to the home. And so the reason this is important for us is that the numbers that are generated help to direct billions of dollars in federal funds to local communities for schools, roads, and other public services, such as some of the things we do here at the city. They also help community prepare to meet transportation and emergency readiness needs, and also helps to determine the number of seats that each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives and the political representation at all levels of government that we enjoy. So having those numbers be represented are very, very important. Last but not least, as I mentioned here probably 2 months ago when I talked a little bit about this, was the fact that when we get everybody accounted for, that helps to give an accurate representation of our population here in the city. That population number has a great potential to help attract businesses and other opportunities based on specifications that they may have. So getting everybody in, making sure we're all accounted for, helps in many, many ways. And I highly encourage everyone to take 4 minutes of time like I did to get this done. So that's what I have. Thank you.
All right, perfect. All right, next, Councilmember Olson and then Councilmember Thiede. So Councilmember Olson?
Thank you, Mayor. I have two comments this evening. First of all, I wanted to take a moment to express condolences to the family of Park High School Hall of Fame member George Chavez, who passed away. I know, Mayor, George was a good friend of yours.
Yes.
And a friend of mine. He was an Air Force veteran, known for his photography skills. George was ever present at all of the various Park High School sporting events and a number of other city events, always with his camera, taking pictures. And, I had the opportunity to chat with George a little bit at the Hall of Fame ceremony earlier this year that Councilmember Dennis and I were able to attend. A great man and just a wonderful resident of our community for many years who contributed so much. So I just wanted to take a moment and express condolences to his family and friends and talk briefly about a big loss to our community. And then I also wanted to talk about our good friend Al Beasley, Deputy Fire Chief for the city of Cottage Grove, who retired after 29 years of dedicated service to our Cottage Grove Fire Department. Al's somebody that all of us know well, and he's been an integral part of the fire department and the public safety team as a whole here in the city of Cottage Grove for many years. His brother Cal was also part of that department for a long time. And, I had the honor of actually graduating high school with his two sisters who were twins, Debbie and Donna. So I wanted to just take a moment to thank Al for his 29 years of service, his dedication, his commitment to this community, his big heart, his ever-present smile, and wish him and his wife Lori and their family all the best in his retirement. I'm pretty sure she's going to get tired of him fairly quickly. So who knows if he'll make a comeback. But, Al, thank you for everything you have done for this city for many, many years and all the best.
Sounds good. Anything else, Mr. Olson?
No, thank you.
Just two little add-ons there since you brought it up. One is, I know there was a planned party for Al for his retirement. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that during the current situation, but I do hope once we get through this tough period of time in our lives that there will be a point where we can celebrate his many years of service to our community and do it in a good way. Though I'm sure he appreciates the comments that you made on behalf of all the council. And with regards to Mr. Chavez, that it is truly a sad day, and I would just share, it's interesting, sitting at home on my desk where I do my mayor's work as well as other work, is a picture that he had taken of myself and a buddy of mine, Ken Britt, and my son, and Greg Rinzel, up at the ice arena during a park hockey game many years ago. And everywhere I'd see him, he would be taking pictures, and then a month or so later, he's handing me pictures to show me what he had taken. So he will truly be missed. He was an amazing gentleman, and our thoughts and prayers go to him and his family. All right, Councilmember Thiede.
All right, well, I guess I just want to make a shout out to everybody on staff and so forth. That you're doing a fantastic job. And in this odd times we're in, a few years we'll look back and it'll be the famous virus of 2020, right? And so I'm just saying that everybody needs to really work hard at trying to think of something nice to say to somebody every day. Keep your smiles, keep those people smiling, and we'll get through this. And everybody is doing a fantastic job. So there you go. Good work.
All right, thank you. And your segue was perfect for me because I just wrote a couple notes to myself regarding the current situation, and that is be kind and respectful to one another is still crucial. We will get through this. I also, and I think Councilmember Mills mentioned this, I'm very impressed with not just the people that are doing the social distancing, but things that people are doing to help each other out too. Whether it's doing hearts in the windows, teddy bears in the windows, Maybe it's chalk on the bottoms of the driveways. I saw something on Facebook earlier that stores are running out of chalk because the kids are down drawing stuff and messages on the trails. I've heard comments about messages on the trails. So I also just want to reiterate that what we talked about earlier too is, we don't know if we have cases within Cottage Grove, all right, true coronavirus cases. My guess is we do. My guess is many of us have been infected by it, not to scare people, but the fact is, it's reality. It's the life we live right now. But just, again, continue to practice, social distancing. I'm not going to go all the way back through what Councilmember Mills had mentioned. But I did want to bring up a couple interesting comments. One is we still have businesses coming to town. We still have businesses that you might have seen if you still are going to get your coffee at Starbucks or going into Hy-Vee. The construction that's going in next to TJ Maxx's, our future PetSmart, that's going in there. So they're still moving forward. There are businesses that are still coming. I was talking to our administrator, and building permits keep coming in for new homes. Our realtors are telling us the homes are still selling. They're just learning a new way of displaying the homes virtually and things like that. So we are still moving forward. Things are still happening. It is a difference for all of us in dealing with that. I can say this with all due sincerity. I miss it's okay to see all you guys on picture, but it would be awesome to have everybody here in the council chambers together because we're doing the work of the people of Cottage Grove, but it's also really good to have all of us in one room together. I look forward to that day when we can do that. And then the other comment I was just going to mention as relates to the current situation is I have the opportunity as a selected mayor tomorrow, as staff is aware of this. I will be on a call with U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar to talk about the effects of this situation on our community. And not just the community of Cottage Grove, but I'm one of 4 mayors that will be representing the state of Minnesota. And so the idea behind that is to share with her and those that are the powers that be for the future in DC for future funding and things like that. What are some of the things that we're seeing that are causing concerns for us, our citizens, our businesses within the community? And then on Friday, I also have a one-on-one call with U.S. Representative Angie Craig, in essence to do the same thing, to kind of get the word out, specific though in this case to Cottage Grove, and how maybe down the road here as the federal government is looking at different ways to stimulate the economy, what are some of the other things that we can provide to them as ideas to help generate additional jobs and things once we get everybody back to work. So I just wanted to mention that. So our work continues, this council's work continues, our staff's work continues, and again, we will get through this. Our city and its people here are amazing, and I would just tell you that once we're through this, I think Councilmember Thiede just kind of did it in an animated way, but it will be better for it, and we'll look back at this at some point in time in our lives and say, remember when this happened. So, and that was it for me today. Next item on our agenda is 13 workshop open to the public. We do not have one. 14 is workshop closed to the public. We do not have one. So we're down to 15, which is motion. We have a motion by Councilmember Thiede. Second by Councilmember Dennis. Joe, do you want to do the roll?
Councilmember Mills,
Approved?
Councilmember Dennis,
Approved.
Councilmember Thiede,
Approved.
Councilmember Olson,
Approved.
Mayor Bailey.
Approved. We are adjourned. Stay safe, everyone.